Sarah's hands shook on the small plane controls as two big fighter jets came up beside her. Through the crackling radio, she heard words that made her heart stop. That's Red Falcon. The secret name she had hidden for 20 years was back to destroy her peaceful life. The morning started like any other day. Sarah woke up in her small house near the old airfield in Montana. She was 45 now, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much. For the past 10 years she had lived quietly here, fixing old planes and giving flying lessons to local kids. Nobody knew who she really was. Nobody knew about her past. She walked to her little white plane, a Cessna that she loved more than anything. It was old, but she kept it running perfectly. Flying was the only thing that made her feel free anymore. Up in the sky, she could forget about everything that happened before. "Good morning, old friend," she said to the plane, patting its wing like she always did. She checked everything twice, just like her father taught her when she was young. Her father had been a pilot too, before he died in a crash when she was 16. Sarah climbed into the cockpit and started the engine. The familiar sound made her smile. She called the control tower at the small airport. "Tower, this is Cessna 347. Ready for takeoff." "Cessna 347, you're clear for takeoff. Have a good flight, Sarah." The young man in the tower was Tommy, just 19 years old. She had taught him to fly 2 years ago. He reminded her of her younger brother, who died in the war in Afghanistan. Sometimes she felt like everyone she cared about was taken away from her. Sarah pushed the throttle forward and the plane rolled down the runway. As the wheels left the ground, she felt that wonderful feeling of being free. Up here, she wasn't Sarah Chen, the quiet airplane mechanic. Up here, she could just be herself. She flew over the mountains and valleys she knew so well. The morning sun painted everything gold and beautiful. She was heading to Billings to pick up some engine parts for a customer's plane. It should have been a simple, peaceful flight. That's when everything changed. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. Two dark shapes were coming up fast behind her. As they got closer, her blood turned cold. They were F-16 fighter jets, military planes that could shoot her tiny Cessna out of the sky without even trying. "What the hell?" she whispered. The jets moved to either side of her plane, close enough that she could see the pilots inside their helmets. Her radio crackled to life. "Small aircraft, this is Falcon leader. You need to follow us immediately. Do not try to run." Sarah's mind raced. Why would military jets be after her? She was just a nobody living in the middle of nowhere. She hadn't done anything wrong. At least not for 20 years. "I don't understand," she said into her radio. "I'm just flying to Billings. I have all my papers. Everything is legal." "Ma'am, you need to come with us now. This is not a request." Sarah looked at the jets on both sides of her. The pilots were staring right at her. One of them was talking on his radio to someone else. She couldn't hear what he was saying, but then her worst nightmare came true. Through the static, she heard the pilot say those two words that destroyed her world. "That's Red Falcon." Her hands started shaking so hard she could barely hold the controls. Red Falcon. Nobody was supposed to know that name. Nobody was supposed to remember. She had buried that identity so deep that sometimes she almost forgot it herself. Red Falcon was who she used to be. Red Falcon was a spy, an assassin, a ghost who could kill without being seen and disappear without a trace. Red Falcon was the woman who worked for the government, doing things that decent people don't talk about. Things that kept her awake at night even now. "No," she whispered. "That's not me anymore. That's not who I am." But the jets were still there, and she knew they wouldn't just go away. Somehow, someone had found her. After 20 years of hiding, of being invisible, of trying to be normal, her past had come back to destroy the small, quiet life she had built. She thought about her students, the kids she taught to fly. She thought about Mrs. Peterson, the old lady who brought her homemade cookies every week. She thought about Tommy in the control tower, who called her Aunt Sarah even though they weren't related. All of these people would find out who she really was. What she really was. The pilot's voice came through the radio again, but this time it was different. Softer. Almost sad. "Sarah, I know you can hear me. My name is Captain Mike Rodriguez. I know this is scary, but we're not here to hurt you. We just need to talk." "I don't know what you want," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not Red Falcon anymore. That person is dead." "I know, Sarah. But there's a problem. People are looking for Red Falcon. Bad people. They're coming for you whether you want to be her or not." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She had always known this day might come. She had hoped it wouldn't, had prayed it wouldn't, but she had known. When you've done the things she had done, when you know the secrets she knew, you can never really escape. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "Malmstrom Air Force Base." There are people there who need to talk to you. People who might be able to help. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Help? Captain, the people who sent you don't help people like me. They use us and then throw us away when we're broken. Maybe. But right now you have bigger problems than us. The radio went quiet for a few minutes. Sarah flew between the two jets, feeling like a prisoner. Below them the world looked so peaceful. Farms and rivers and small towns where normal people lived normal lives. She had wanted so badly to be one of those normal people. She thought about the day she decided to disappear. It was in a hospital in Prague 20 years ago. She had been shot 3 times and barely escaped alive from a mission that went wrong. As she lay there bleeding, listening to doctors speak in a language she didn't understand, she made a promise to herself. If she lived, she would find a way out. She would become someone else, someone clean. It took her 2 years to arrange everything. New identity, new papers, new life. She chose Montana because it was far from everything, quiet and empty. She learned to fix planes because it reminded her of her father, who had been the only person who ever truly loved her. For 10 years it worked. She was happy, or as close to happy as someone like her could be. She helped people. She taught kids to fly. She went to church on Sundays and nobody asked questions about her past. She even had a dog, a golden retriever named Charlie, who died last year from cancer. She cried for a week when Charlie died, and realized it was the first time she had cried since she was a child. Sarah, Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the radio again. We're almost there. I want you to know that whatever happens, you did the right thing coming with us. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. Red Falcon taught me that. Sarah was confused. What do you mean? My father was Captain Luis Rodriguez. Does that name mean anything to you? Sarah's heart stopped. Luis Rodriguez. Bogota, 1998. A DEA agent who was about to be killed by drug dealers. She had saved his life, but he never saw her face. She was just a shadow in the night, a ghost who appeared and disappeared. Your father? She whispered. He told me about the angel who saved him. A woman who appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as fast. He never knew who she was, but he never forgot. He used to tell me that story when I was little. About how someone he never met risked everything to save his life. Tears started running down Sarah's face. She had never thought about the people she saved, only the people she killed. She had forgotten that Red Falcon sometimes did good things too. He lived because of you, Captain Rodriguez continued. He came home and married my mother and had 3 kids. I have 2 sisters who wouldn't exist if you hadn't saved him. He became chief of police in our town and helped hundreds of people over the years. All because you saved him. I don't remember, Sarah lied. She remembered everything. Every mission, every face, every choice between life and death. He died 5 years ago. Cancer. But before he died, he made me promise something. He said if I ever met the angel who saved him, I should tell her thank you. He said not all heroes wear uniforms. Sarah couldn't speak. She had spent 20 years hating herself for what she had done, for what she had been. She never thought about the good things, the lives she had saved, the people who went home to their families because of her. So thank you, Sarah. From my whole family. Thank you for giving us our father. They flew in silence for a while. Sarah could see the Air Force Base ahead with its long runways and military buildings. Soon this peaceful flight would be over and she would have to face whatever was waiting for her. Captain Rodriguez, she said finally. Yes, ma'am? What's your first name again? Mike. Mike, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think people like me can ever really change? Can we ever stop being what we were? Mike was quiet for a long time. Finally he said, my father always told me that we are who we choose to be, not what we've done. You chose to disappear. You chose to help people. You chose to teach kids to fly instead of teaching people to die. That's who you are now. But Red Falcon is still inside me. She'll always be there. Maybe. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe the world needs Red Falcon one more time. As they approached the Air Force Base, Sarah saw black cars waiting on the runway. Men in dark suits who looked like they had never smiled in their lives. She knew the type. She used to work with people like that. Sarah, Mike said. Whatever they tell you in there, remember that you have friends. Remember that you saved my father. Remember that you matter. I'll try. The landing was smooth. Sarah had always been a good pilot, even when her hands were shaking. As her plane rolled to a stop, she saw the men in suits walking toward her. Behind them was a woman in an Air Force uniform with a lot of ribbons on her chest. A general maybe. Sarah turned off the engine and sat in the quiet cockpit for a moment. She could hear her heart beating. She thought about running, but there was nowhere to go. The little white plane that had been her freedom for so many years was now her prison. She opened the door and climbed out. The men in suits surrounded her immediately, but they didn't point guns at her or put handcuffs on her. That was something at least. The woman in uniform walked up to her. She was about 50 years old, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Miss Chin, I'm General Patricia Wells. Thank you for coming." Like I had a choice. General Wells smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. There's always a choice. The question is whether you'll like the alternatives. They walked toward a black car. Sarah looked back at her plane one more time. Mike Rodriguez was climbing out of his F-16, taking off his helmet. He was younger than she expected, maybe 30 years old, with his father's kind eyes. He walked over to her. "Sarah, I meant what I said up there. You're a good person." "I hope you're right, Mike. I really hope you're right." The general was waiting by the car. "Miss Chin, we need to go. There are people who want to talk to you and we don't have much time." Sarah got into the car. As they drove away from the airfield, she saw Mike Rodriguez watching them go. For some reason that made her feel a little better. At least someone in this place knew that she wasn't just a monster. The drive to the main building was short. Inside, everything looked like every other government building Sarah had ever been in. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, and the smell of fear and bad coffee. They took her to a conference room with no windows. The general sat across from her at a long table. Two of the men in suits stood by the door like guards. "Miss Chin," the general began, "or should I call you Red Falcon? My name is Sarah Chin. Red Falcon died 20 years ago. I wish that were true. But 3 days ago, someone used Red Falcon's old access codes to break into a classified government database. Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for." Sarah felt cold. "That's impossible. Those codes were destroyed when Red Falcon disappeared." "Apparently not. Someone has them, and they used them to steal information about current operations. Information that could get a lot of good people killed. It wasn't me. I've been living quietly in Montana for 10 years. Ask anyone. We know it wasn't you directly. But someone knows Red Falcon's codes, which means someone knows about you. And if they know about you, they probably know where you are." Sarah's hands were shaking again. "Oh, who knows?" General Wells slid a photograph across the table. It showed a man with dark hair and cold eyes that Sarah recognized immediately. Her blood turned to ice. "Viktor Kozlov," the general said. "Russian intelligence. He was your handler during the Prague operation in 2003. "That's impossible. Viktor is dead. I saw him die. So did we. But apparently we were all wrong." Sarah stared at the photograph. Viktor Kozlov had been the closest thing to a friend she had in that dark world of secrets and lies. He had trained her, protected her, and almost loved her. She thought she had almost loved him too, until she discovered he had been selling information to the highest bidder. When their last mission went wrong and she got shot, she assumed he had died in the explosion that destroyed the safe house. "If Viktor is alive," Sarah said slowly, "then he's not just after the codes. He's after me." "Why?" Sarah looked up at the general. "Because I'm the only person alive who knows he's a traitor. And because 20 years ago I left him to die." The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, General Wells spoke. "Miss Chin, we need your help. Viktor has taken something that doesn't belong to him, and he's planning to sell it to people who want to hurt America. You're the only person who knows how he thinks, how he operates. I told you I'm not that person anymore." "Maybe not. But that person is the only one who can stop him." Sarah closed her eyes. She had known this day would come. She had always known. You can't escape your past forever, especially when your past involves people like Viktor Kozlov. "What did he steal?" she asked. General Wells hesitated. "The identities and locations of every undercover agent we have working overseas. 47 people whose lives are now in danger because of what Viktor knows." "Jesus." "He's planning to auction the information to the highest bidder. Russian, Chinese, Iranian intelligence services. Terrorist groups. Anyone with enough money." Sarah thought about those 47 people. Men and women who had families, who had chosen to risk their lives to protect their country. People like Captain Rodriguez's father, who just wanted to do the right thing. "Where is he?" she asked. "We don't know. But we think he'll try to contact you." "Why would he do that?" General Wells smiled grimly. "Because Viktor Kozlov is many things, but he's not stupid. He knows that as long as you're alive, you're a threat to him. He'll want to finish what he started 20 years ago." Sarah felt something stirring inside her, something she had tried to bury for 10 years. It was cold and hard and dangerous. It was Red Falcon waking up from a long sleep. If I help you, Sarah said, what happens to my life in Montana? What happens to my students, my friends? If Victor succeeds, your life in Montana is over anyway. He'll find you eventually, and when he does, everyone around you will be in danger. Sarah thought about Tommy in the control tower, about Mrs. Peterson with her cookies, about all the kids she had taught to fly. She thought about the small, quiet life she had built with such care. Victor would destroy all of it just to get to her. What do you want me to do? We want you to be bait. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah had been bait before many times. It was dangerous and usually ended badly for everyone involved. You want me to let him find me? Yes. But this time you won't be alone. We'll have a team watching, waiting. When Victor comes for you, we'll be ready. And if something goes wrong? If your team isn't fast enough? General Wells didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, then Red Falcon will have to save the day one more time. Sarah stood up and walked to the wall. There was a map of the world there with red pins marking places she recognized. Places where she had been, things she had done. A lifetime of violence and secrets. I'll need equipment, she said without turning around. What kind of equipment? The kind Red Falcon used to use. When Sarah turned back to face the general, her eyes were different. Harder. Colder. The schoolteacher from Montana was gone, and something much more dangerous had taken her place. When do we start? General Wells smiled, and this time it was a real smile. Welcome back, Red Falcon. 2 hours later, Sarah was on another plane, this time a military transport heading east. She sat alone in the cargo hold, surrounded by crates of weapons and equipment. In her hands was a file containing everything the government knew about Viktor Kozlov's current activities. She read about bank accounts in Switzerland, safe houses in 3 different countries, and a network of contacts that stretched from Moscow to Tehran. Victor had been busy during his 20 years of being dead. But what worried her most was a photograph taken 3 weeks ago outside a cafe in Prague. Victor, older now but still recognizable, sitting across from a woman Sarah didn't recognize. The woman was young, maybe 25, with red hair and the kind of face that people forget 5 minutes after seeing it. Sarah knew that face. It was the face of someone like her, someone who killed for a living and disappeared into crowds. Victor had replaced her. The plane hit turbulence and Sarah gripped her seat. She wasn't afraid of flying, but she was afraid of what waited for her at the end of this flight. She was afraid of becoming Red Falcon again, afraid of the things she might have to do. But mostly she was afraid that after 20 years of trying to be good, she might discover that she was still the same cold, ruthless killer she had always been. The transport plane flew through the night, carrying Sarah Chin toward a confrontation that had been 20 years in the making. Behind her, the lights of Montana disappeared into darkness. Ahead of her, somewhere in the shadows of the world, Viktor Kozlov was waiting. And for the first time in 10 years, Sarah Chin smiled like Red Falcon used to smile. Cold and sharp and full of deadly promise. The hunt was about to begin.